Welcome to the Steel Birds podcast, starring your hosts Corey King and Harry Brockington IV, aka Brock. What's up, Brock?
What's happening? What's going on, man?
How you doing? How you feeling?
Man, just having that post draft hangover. Wishing we were still in it. But yeah, it's time to get
No
to
doubt.
business. Got time to get to rookie mini camp and all that stuff. OTAs start the season off strong.
Yeah. Schedule release is coming soon, and
Right.
then everyone just plays hypotheticals until August.
So August, basically, yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, I feel that. So yeah, today we're going to just talk about some recent news with our teams, some signings and stuff, post draft, whatever. Then we're going to just run through rounds 2 through 7 for the draft, because we talked about round 1 last week in our picks. And then after that, we'll just do our grind our gear segment pretty much and call it a day. So yeah, if you want to kick us off with some news before we get into the draft. Anything happened recently with y'all?
Yeah, so Steelers recently declined both Najee and Justin Fields' fifth-year option. Justin Fields' fifth-year option getting declined wasn't a surprise to, I don't think, anyone. He has.
Yeah, that's a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot, and he just, if he doesn't even end up starting or beating out Russ, it just doesn't make sense. And even if he does end up beating him out, he needs to kind of show that he can be the guy going forward. So it's kind of like a prove it year for him. I think even he understands that. But the Najee one was kind of surprising to me, just the fact that it was only like a little bit over $6 million, $7 million. He's been a really consistent back for us. He's rushed for over 1,000 yards all 3 seasons that he's been with us. That's the first in franchise history for us. He's been available even when he's been injured. He's played, and he still, rushed for 1,000 when he had, the Lens Frank fracture. He was playing with a steel plate in his foot. So all that kind of just being the leader that he's been, off the field issues, nothing's been, there. He's been available. So there's been a lot of critique about Najee, he's slow and whatever, but it's just like the dude has never been a fast back. Even when he was at Alabama, he was just a guy that was running over people, running hard. He was bigger, stronger than everybody, and he's still consistently doing, the same thing in the league. So I think that's kind of come on because we have Jaylen Warren, who was obviously undrafted, smaller guy who is faster, but that's what he is. He is a faster, like, scat change of pace back. And so I don't think certain fans understand the dynamic of having multiple backs, and most of the time those backs are going to be different type of backs. You don't really see 2 bruisers. Like, most of the time there are different kind of backs. One guy can block better, one guy can catch out the backfield type of thing, and that's just basically what we have in that tandem. But to the point of Omar Khan and the Steelers, I don't really understand their thought process of that. But something that I could maybe just think of is they want to see him operate in this new Arthur Smith offense and kind of see if he gels with the new offense and how he does.
Yeah.
But, for me, our line has been the weakest part of our offense for a few years now, and now we've got some dudes now. And so my thought process would be, if he rushed for over 1,000 his first 3 years in the league with the line that we had from before, what is he going to do now? He, in my opinion, as long as he stays healthy, he's going to go crazy. So, but I think it's probably a prove year for Jaylen Warren as well. He becomes a restricted free agent next season as well, and so it's kind of to see what both guys can do. So understandable, but I expected them to pick him up on that 5th-year option, but we'll see what ends up happening. He could obviously sign a deal at the end of the year as well. So
yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you, like, it kind of feels like the Steelers are like, they're not all in necessarily, like, for this year, but it seems like, if everything goes well, like, the right people will get re-signed or get a new contract. But like, if things go shitty, then they might just, let people go who were part of the old regime, kind of.
Exactly. That's another thing. I think Mark is kind of trying to, in a low-key way, clean out all the Kevin Colbert, picks, you know what I mean? And the guys who are really those dudes. Like I feel like Pat Fryermuth, he's coming up as a guy that we need to sign or let go, and I think he'll get paid because he's shown enough. But I think the majority of those guys you're going to see get let go because of just what you just said is he kind of wants to have his regime start coming in there, and then the
Yeah.
guys that deserve to stay will stay. So
Yeah. No, that's good. Um, yeah, and also I was gonna say, like, I feel like, fans are, especially because of, like the obsession with fantasy football, like you'll see fans just get so quick to like get upset with like Steelers because they're like, why is Najee Harris playing? Like Jalen Warren's more explosive. He does this, he does that. But at the same time, it's like sometimes the reason why Jalen Warren is able to be so explosive and fresh is because like Najee's taking the brunt of the hits and he's,
yeah,
he's reliable and getting all like the tough yards and taking the bruising for he can last an entire season
right,
being a lead back, and Jalen Warren benefits from that. But you take him away, we don't know if Jalen Warren is going to be able to produce at the same rate
exactly.
playing the entire season,
And
getting
that's
those same.
basically what we've
Yeah,
just seen with Tony Pollard. No knock on him. There obviously
right.
was a little bit of a difference there because he broke his leg, so
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
little bit different. But to that point, it's like you can look really good as that second, third back or whatever when you're fresh and everything. But what do you look like when you're taking the beating every single time? Are you still able to be that same dude? And I would say just based on how I've seen him play in his film that Jalen could be that, but I think the same was thought of Tony Pollard, and we've kind of seen that. So I think we're going to
yeah,
get to kind of see that a little bit. I think they're going to get pretty much like probably 60-40 carries, or it's going to be more of a shared load. So we'll see. But yeah, I think that's a great point to make. I don't think people really understand what it's like to on a defensive side of the ball to have this dude who is 6'2", 240, who is running at you hard. And then there's a guy who's 5'8", who you probably don't even see until he hits the hole, for one.
right.
And then two, he's a lot more shifty or a lot, and it's different. It's weird, and especially with him too, he's a very strong, compact guy. There's a clip of him pancaking, either it was a
Yeah,
safety or a linebacker who was like
a
six
lot of
three.
clips. I feel like
Yeah,
I
and
always see
he
a
he
clip.
he
Yeah,
he bucks the dude and just knocks him over like
yeah,
it's paper. So this dude is also a strong guy too. So I think that also, and that fans are not really understanding how that is as a defensive guy having to handle that. But I think Najee will play well under this new scheme and having these new offensive linemen come in, and he should barring any injury get re-signed too at the end of the season. So
yeah, yeah. And then in Eagles news, the only thing really post draft was they signed Mekhi Becton, the former first round pick for the Jets, who's big and has talent, but just hasn't really been realized. So people are like, oh, Jeff Stoutland's gonna get everything out of him. So we'll see what happens there.
talented
Because
dude. I think he just has injury.
yeah,
The injuries is really
yeah,
what's been
yeah,
holding
and
him back.
and the reporting like shortly after that signing was that they're gonna try him at guard too. So
Mm,
you know,
okay.
Tyler Steen right now is the starting guard, but based on how we drafted and then with that signing, there's contingency plans in case that doesn't go well, or we have depth in case Elaine Johnson gets hurt, because that was one of my low key concerns. That's why I thought maybe they could draft like a Troy Fautanu like y'all did, or a tackle for a Lane Johnson replacement. But Lane's going to play 2 more years. He wants to play 2 more years, so he'll be out there and hopefully healthy the whole year. But if things don't go according to plan, I'm glad they have some
Some
sort of
insurance.
plan in
Yeah.
place. Yeah, some insurance, exactly. Um, but yeah, the Eagles' O line is big as hell. Jordan Mailata's like 6'8", 330. Mekhi Becton, I think, is 6'7", 330. Landon Dickerson 6'6", 320. Like, so
Yeah.
they got some big boys up there,
Right.
which you love to see. Hopefully we continue to be one of the best, if not the best, O lines in the league.
Yeah.
Even though we lost a Hall of Famer this year, but we'll see how that goes about. Uh, but yeah, let's hop into the draft now. Let's talk about
Yeah.
the rest of the rounds here. Okay. You want to start us off with your picks here? You want to just go like round for round? I guess we can go just
Yeah, we
second
can do
round
that
and
so we
third
don't seem
round.
like
Yeah.
we're talking, we're just one
Yeah.
sided the whole time. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, as you guys know, we did select Troy Fautanu with our first round pick. Um, it's been said that he's going to play either left or right tackle, which is perfect in my opinion. And so with the second pick, we chose Zach Frazier, center from West Virginia. We had a glaring center need ever since we released Mason Cole. Everyone was wondering if we were going to get, some type of free agent. There was rumors that we were going to get Connor Williams from the Dolphins, and then that there was going to be possibly a trade. When that didn't happen, leading up into the draft or during the draft, none of that happened. And so we were kind of thinking as Steelers fans, we're going to have to trade up for somebody. Our guys are not going to be there because obviously since we went with Troy Fautanu, um, Jackson Powers Johnson went to the Raiders, and so that was a very high guy on everyone's board and our board as well. And then Graham Barton, he went to the Bucks, and so that was another guy that could play guard or center. And so it was like after that in round two it was like either going to be Zach or Cedric Van Pran, who was from Georgia, who's another high caliber guy. But it's really those two dudes, and sure enough another high player on our big board falls to us at 51. You know, really excited about that pick. He's going to be a plug and play center for sure. A dude that has a wrestling background, which you hear scouts and analysts, they love guys who have wrestled, and he was a 4-time wrestling champ. They said it like 70 times during the draft. So if
Yeah.
you didn't
Yeah.
know,
They
you didn't
love when
know.
linemen wrestle.
Right. So if
Yeah.
you didn't know that, you definitely knew it during the draft, and so excited about that. I think it's a great pick, and I'm glad that he was able to fall to us, and we didn't have to give up any extended cap or picks, I should say, to go and get him.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I feel like all the O line picks that you guys had in the draft to me just feel like Steelers. Like these dudes do not like the people they're blocking. Like they're trying to punish people
Right.
every play, and you love to see that. But yeah, he's a good player. Someone like that. I thought the Eagles might have addressed the O line earlier, but the board didn't really fall that way, and I liked how they drafted, but that was a guy I kind of had my eye on as a possible like day 2 pick.
Yeah. Real
He
gritty
was
type of dude,
10th.
man.
Yeah, he was tied for 10th in pass blocking grade per PFF
Oh,
last
was
year.
he?
So
Okay.
just yeah,
Yeah.
a good player.
In his tape,
Um,
you just see, last thing I'll say is that
no,
he's a very much of a team guy. There's a clip where you see he breaks his leg. He did, and that's another thing about him too. He was able to recover very quickly from a broken leg. He was able to test, and he's completely healthy now. He had just broken his leg in the season. I think it was in November, I want to say, or October. So not too long ago. But in the clip, he hops off the field so that the the Mountaineers didn't have to, risk a timeout. I think they had one timeout left during that time, and so he hops off the field with that broken leg to allow them to, just run somebody else on, and they're able to run a play. And so a guy like that that's willing to, risk his body and put his body on the line, being in that type of pain, that really stands out. And that, Mike Tomlin talked about that as just that's a Steeler guy that you're going to always put the franchise first, even when you have a broken leg or whatever the circumstance may be. And so I'm really glad we're getting a guy like that, because that just feels like a Steeler dude, a center that we've needed, after we lost to retirement, Marquise Pouncey. So
yeah, no, that's a good point. Actually, I meant to bring that up at some point during this podcast. Is like, I think it was I think Louis Riddick said it on Twitter recently. He said like there's a difference between like acquiring talent and building a team when it comes to like drafting and all that in the NFL. So like I feel like both our teams are good at like building a team, like you have
right.
Steelers have like a certain like mindset and mentality they want their players to have. Same with the Eagles. Like you can tell by the way they drafted this year, especially like they wanted dudes that like love football, like are in leadership roles. Like a lot of them are like captains or like people that
Right.
just like their teammates like rave about. I don't know if you got people listening. I don't know if you saw the Eagles posted a like all access a video of like their a few days of the draft, and it was like a 22-minute clip of like just showing like their process, and they had this thing called like a Red Star meeting where each like analyst kind of talks about the guys that they think like are Eagle type prospects, and
All right.
I think after the draft they said like they drafted like 4 or 5 of their Red Star guys, so like just high like quality players that they want for their
Right.
team in their locker room, especially the way the season ended for the Eagles last year. There were a lot of reports and stuff talking about like leadership and like different things coming out the locker room, and you don't want to hear shit like that. So
No.
now, especially now that Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox are gone, like we're gonna need people to step
Step
up and
up.
be
Yeah.
leaders, and that's
And
But yeah,
I don't think people understand that how important that is too. Like some people will be like,
yeah,
so he's a captain. He has the C on his chest in college or whatever. What does that mean? But it's like, no, man. What that means is like everybody on the team, including the coaches, trust and respect that guy, and he's the guy that's gonna, when stuff might be crumbling, is gonna hold it together, whether it's in real time on the field or locker room issues that we don't even hear about or see until after.
yeah,
That's really important. And I think it was Tua that everyone made a big deal out of. I think it was his second year where they were like, he didn't become the captain, and everyone thought that was ridiculous. But if the quarterback is not seen as a captain, to me, that I have an issue with that. That's something, regardless if you're a rookie or not, having a guy that is definitely the leader of not just the offense, but pretty much the entire team. You want to see, the quarterback being chosen when it's, the team that's choosing the captains choose the quarterback. So I think, a lot of people don't understand how actually important that is to have guys that are constantly in that role, or people see them in that role.
yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, to hop into the Eagles' second round pick, you know, they traded up to get Cooper DeJean out of Iowa, who was a player that I thought, and a lot of people thought they might have taken in the first round, but he fell to them in the second round. Um, I loved his tape. I liked everything that I saw. Basically, there were concerns coming out that he might not have the fluidity and like hips and athletic ability to actually be an outside corner, which would have been more concerning if we took him as a first round pick to be our outside corner. But now, we drafted him and he can just kind of, get in where he fits in and
Right.
just be a ball player in that defense. Him and Quignon are players that just have high football IQs, can, they have good route recognition and can make plays on the ball. And the Eagles were just lacking that and lacking speed. And he's a 4.4 guy. Quignon's 4.3. We got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back. We just need dudes that like give a fuck and are going to try hard on defense. And
Right.
that was sincerely lacking. So I love the pick. We'll see if he ends up being a slot or a safety or whatever. But I'm just glad that the secondary was addressed with this much like of a priority.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think he'll do well. So we'll see.
Yeah, it seems like you got, kind of. I mean, I never really mentioned. I mentioned Zach in some of my picks that I wanted. It was more of Graham Barton and Jackson Powers Johnson towards the end, but definitely didn't see us getting Troy Fautanu. But it seemed that you got, two guys off the bat that you had kind of put in a mock or
Yeah,
even talked about before the draft, and Quignon and Cooper. So I really
yeah,
think that exactly what you were saying that you guys needed to do, which was to really prioritize getting those DBs in there to help out Slay, is exactly what they did. So it's like, they really saw that as, a priority. And I think you guys got exactly what you needed. And even if he does go to safety, he's going to be a guy that starts right away and makes a huge impact for you guys right away. So I like the pick as well too.
yeah,
But yeah, so with our 84th pick in the third round, we went wide receiver and got Roman Wilson. I think I talked to you a little bit off air about not not necessarily liking the pick, just for the simple fact that he's another speed guy that's a little bit undersized. He was in an offense that was heavy in the run, so that's understandable that his numbers weren't insane. I think he had like 780 yards, 12 touchdowns. Uh, for me, because our offense is going to be run heavy, I think that fits for him schematically. Just hopefully he's a guy that can run every route and it's just not a speed guy, because we already kind of had that. And Calvin Austin, who, he's another guy that was a sub 4.3 dude, undersized as well. He broke his foot, came back, and he's kind of just been a gadget guy. So that was just my main concern of, like, why would we need two gadget dudes? But hopefully, like I said, he can run every route. I still really strongly believe we need a wide receiver too, and I don't believe he's that. I think he would be a strong, 3 for sure. But yeah, guy out of Michigan who's a burner. This is a guy that, Jim Harbaugh talked about, with high respect. He was another leader on the team. And when you see his pressers after games, stuff like that, he's a very fiery guy. He talks very, he's a humble guy, but he talks very confident within himself. And I like that, at least. I like the character of the player for sure. So it's just basically, is he going to be able to be a scheme fit for us? And is he going to be dangerous enough to get guys, away from GP? Is it going to be GP's getting doubled, and then because of that, he really hurts the defense? And that's really what we need. If we have our main guy being doubled, you are going to have to make some type of impact because of that, because you should be able to, especially because you're a guy that's going to be faster than most people on the defense. So definitely liked our other two picks, our first two picks, a lot better, but it could have been a lot worse. I don't feel like it was a reach. I think we got him right where his value was. And so, decent pick.
Yeah. I like the pick. I thought he could be a possible receiver 3 for the Eagles, but yeah, I understand that not necessarily coming out looking like a person who could be a number 2 right away.
Right.
He may be more of a number 3, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
But to that point, I saw recently, PFF said that he was one of their steals of the draft for you guys, and 26 of his 34 targets when he was in single coverage were charted as open. So like that's like a high percentage of
Right.
just, if it's him one-on-one, he's getting open,
right.
which is good to see. So hopefully that translates into the NFL.
Right.
So yeah, with the Eagles' third round pick, they took Jalix Hunt out of Houston Christian. A guy that honestly I didn't watch film of going into the draft. I didn't hear about him much. I know he was on people's boards, but I didn't know much about him. But just watching his tape and stuff, he stood out. I mean, not that he stood out, yes, but I meant to say like his tape is impressive because it's just like he's just so much more athletic than everyone else. It's kind of hard to like evaluate someone like that, because like if you're just dominating on every play, it's like are you good because you're skilled, or you're just a better athlete? Like he has long arms. He ran like a 4.6 40,
right.
has a like 38-inch broad jump. Like he's super athletic, and it showed on film. So it's hard to tell. It's like, is he going to be a guy that can translate into the NFL, or is it just like he just dominated his competition and because he wasn't like a big school guy?
Exactly.
But in terms of like the athleticism and the measurables, like he looks like a great pick and a great player. So I also saw like how they said Howie Roseman like said he wanted to text Daniel Jeremiah and like tell him to take him off his like
the big board.
It was like the big board of like players available at the time of the third round or whatever, because he wanted to get him. So so
I was kind of like you. I heard about him kind of later in the process. I watched a couple games on him. There was a game where he had a pick 6, I think it was. So definitely, like you said, very athletic dude. But to that point, you always hear scouts or analysts say that if you're going to be playing at a D1 AA school, smaller D1 school, or D2, whatever, D3, you better be standing out the whole, not even just on certain plays, the whole season, because, teams like Purdue or Vanderbilt, like you're in the SEC. So if you're, kind of having decent plays here and there, it's like, okay, on a team where you have more help and coaching, maybe that could become more consistent. So even though you're playing at the lower of the SEC or the ACC, they can see the potential in that. But if you're playing at a small school, you can't be having spurts here and there where you're good. You got to be dominating all the time because that is going to be the expectation. And I think he did that.
Right.
So I think that's why,
Definitely.
he got that projection of like, I think it was the third to fifth round. So you guys got the value there with him. And I think that's a good pick, like you said as well. He definitely a guy that with coaching is going to be, consistent as he was at the small school, and he has the size and everything else. So I don't think it will be a problem with his transition at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had 2/3. So with our 98th pick in the third round, we took Peyton Wilson, linebacker from North Carolina. I did not expect us to take the particular player. I knew they could possibly take another linebacker just because we did acquire Patrick Queen. We have a Landon Roberts still, but Cole Holcomb is still recovering from a nasty knee injury, and Omar has been said to say, not too much information on there, but that he's trying to work back. Quan Alexander is a free agent right now, probably not going to sign until maybe OTAs because he had a ruptured Achilles. And so I could see them taking a backer. I didn't think it was going to be as early as we did, but definitely not the player. And Peyton Wilson is a dude that, everybody said that was right up there with Edrin Cooper, 1 or 2 for the linebackers, but because of the injury history, knocked him down. But they said if not for the injuries, he definitely would have been a second round pick. So we got the value there. Dude, 6'4", 233, ran 4.4. So just a really athletic guy, led the team with tackles 2 straight seasons. So this is a dude that doesn't have an ACL. He doesn't have an ACL. And I never heard about that until a few years ago when I actually met someone, maybe a decade ago, I met someone who is a good friend of mine still to this day that said he didn't have an ACL. And
It's strange.
I didn't really believe that. I was like, okay, but now hearing that he doesn't have one, he was playing on it, playing at a high level is crazy.
Yeah.
And so all the the medicals checks through, his knees are good. He had a couple shoulder surgeries that all checked out. So I think that if he stays healthy, he definitely could be a great tandem with Cole if he comes back and Patrick Queen. But him having to play early, I think will be, amazing for us. He's a guy that he's like a Tasmanian devil. I would say like he's always going to be around the ball. There's effort, a lot you'll see in his tape. There's a time where he's hawking a dude down that was, he was gone. He was going to the crib. He was running. And the dude just runs 50 yards basically, gets him down. And I think they ended up getting the ball back after that as well. So you love to see like, where you're pouring your heart out for your team type of guys. And so I really like the pick, and I'm hoping that he stays healthy because I feel like he can be real nasty tandem with Patrick Queen.
Yeah, I like that pick for you guys. That's another dude. You just turn on the tape and you just see that he is like about it.
Right.
He's gonna smack dudes around. He's not just out there like playing. He's trying to like mess people up.
Right, definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, and with the now going into the fourth round, I believe. Yeah, because the Eagles made a lot of trades, and I'll talk about that later. Yeah, it was like the most ever since the last time they broke the record or something. It was like I was
watching it live all 3 days, and like every single time I heard the Eagles are trading up again, and the Eagles are trading up again. And it was like, what are they doing?
Yeah,
what?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about that after we get through this. But yeah, so in the fourth round, with the 127th pick, I see here they took Will Shipley, the running back from Clemson. I think I saw he had 31 touchdowns since 2022, which is like the 5th most in Power 5 or something. So like, he can score. He's on a good team. Doesn't necessarily grade well. Looking at the PFF draft guide here, he's not very high in any stable metric really, except in zone grade. And that stood out on tape as well. He's a back that does well in zone schemes, and if the Eagles can find a role for him and he can make plays, being in that kind of with those type of play calls, that'll be good. But that's not a player that like I was like super pumped about. I saw like some people were excited about it, but it's hard to tell sometimes with running backs.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a good eye for running back because I played running back and I didn't really see it, so I don't want to be a hater. But
Yeah.
I wasn't really impressed watching his tape. But
Me either, being a former running
who
back
knows?
as well.
Yeah, and he's white, so
I'm not seeing the Christian McCaffrey type of,
right.
what I mean, but to that
Yeah,
point, he could just be like a gadget guy or just a guy that ends up, doing special teams, because obviously the kick return stuff is different. But as far
yeah,
as making his way up the depth chart there, I don't really see that there. Again, I'm not trying to be a hater, like you said, but he didn't really do anything overwhelmingly well. And you just, said that, he didn't really have anything that was eye popping for his grading. But even in tape, because I watch a lot of Clemson games ever since, Taj Boyd was starting at quarterback for them. And so, didn't really see anything that was eye popping for me, especially because, we saw
yeah.
Travis Etienne play there and how electric he was. And by no means do would I say he's electric, but he did a lot for them and he was like a bell cow for them. And so good for him. And hopefully he does carve out, some type of role for y'all.
Yeah, but like since 2016, when Howie Roseman was like back making picks himself, the Eagles have drafted Wendell Smallwood, Donald Pumphrey, Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, and now Will Shipley. Those are the only like running backs they've drafted, and all of those, in my opinion, are fucking busts. So
Yeah,
whoever's telling Howie Roseman to draft these running backs needs to get fucking fired,
right.
or change the philosophy. I'm not sure what they're looking for. um, I think you know, I think when it comes to like high effort guys and captains, leaders, all that, you want that in a player, but that can't be the end all be all, especially with the running back. And
Yeah.
they're missing something. I haven't liked really any of their draft picks. Miles Sanders was the one that I was kind of excited about when it happened, but we also could have just taken DK Metcalf, which I wanted to. But anyways, we'll see what happens.
Right,
But yeah,
right, right.
that's my thoughts on that pick. So
Okay, and then with our starting our fourth round with the 119th pick, we selected Mason McCormick, guard from South Dakota State. Now, this was a surprise, not just the player, but also the position for me, because I thought we were done, taking linemen. I kind of
yeah,
I expected this pick to be slot corner or some type of corner to try to uh, you know bolster that depth, or even just to have a guy that could maybe sneak and be a partner for Joey Porter Jr. Even though I know we did get Dante Jackson, but I feel like he's going to be more of a stopgap guy. He only signed for 1 year, and if he goes crazy, then I could see us re-signing him. But he might just be like the stopgap guy. So yeah, Mason McCormick, nasty guard. I didn't watch any film on him, but since us drafting him, I was able to watch one or two games or 1.5 games, and 6'4", 309 pounds. He's a little undersized weight wise, but everyone who's commented on him has just said that the dude is just he's nuts. Like, he's the nicest guy off the field, but on the field he's crazy. He's the guy that you see when you're the little kid going to whatever high school you're going to go to, and you see these dudes and they're on the sidelines and they're smashing their head. At least for me, is what I saw. Guys smashing their heads.
yeah,
They're really passionate, and
yeah.
they're saying that this is that type of guy, and so.
A Steeler.
A Steeler, right,
Yeah,
right. And so
yeah,
for me, I was confused on, going guard, because we have two very solid guards in James Daniels and Isaac Salamalu. But I guess the plan here is just for him to learn behind them. And James Daniels is, upcoming free agent for 2025. So maybe, he slides in there, or if he beats out Isaac. But I'm not, you know, I'm not frowning upon it, just because, it's a thought process of really trying to, beef up that line and make sure that there's no weaknesses when it comes to that, because of what our identity is going to be running the ball. And so if dude comes out the gate and beats out, a great solid veteran like Isaac Salamalu, or if it's just him, learning behind both of them, and then we just decide not to re-sign James Daniels and he goes to right guard, I'm completely fine with that. So that was more of like depth piece slash, if he overachieves type of pick. So I'm not, overly upset about that at all. And so we'll see what he does, and you'll kind of be able to see during camp if he's ready to kind of step up now, or if he's going to need that time. But it's not a guy that we have to be worried about, being a weakness because he has to start right away. So it's not the biggest deal.
Yeah, yeah. He was one of the guys that I was kind of keeping an eye on pre-draft.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and that's only because I talked about it on the pod, and I was tweeting about it a lot. This guy Josh Norris for Underdog Fantasy, he said since 2010, 28 offensive linemen have recorded a 4.47 short shuttle or better, and 24 of the 28 were drafted. And then of those 24, 84 they started 84% of their NFL games. So Mason McCormick's one of them who you guys drafted. So I thought he could be a depth piece or a Eagles pick for our team. And then a guy that we took in the 6th round was Dylan McMahon. He ran a 4.33 short shuttle. So
I remember
those
you
are
talking
just
about him. Yeah.
So there were a few guys who were linemen who had the quick short shuttles that I was just like kind of seeing like where they ended up. And
Right.
The next few years, I'm just gonna keep an eye on them and see if the trend continues, because that is an interesting trend. You have to be athletic as hell to run a 5.10.5 under 4.4,
Right.
so, or 4.47 in this case. But
for those bigger guys as well, for people that don't understand 300-pound dudes doing that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. Did you guys have another 4th round pick or no? 5th round? No,
we only had 1/4 and we had no
Okay.
5th, 2 6th.
Okay, yeah, okay. So we had 2 5th round picks. The first one being Anais Smith, the receiver out of Texas A&M.
Yeah.
He had 20 missed tackles forced on receptions, which was 7th most among all receivers last year, which is crazy because he's only 5'9" and maybe like I think he's like 195 or 200.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, he's a little thicker. And they said I'm pretty sure they said he played running back in the day, but then
he did
transferred to receiver. So
yeah,
you can kind of see it. He's shifty, and he stands out. Just being a little dude, you just see him run across the middle, snag a ball, and just take off. And he also was a punt returner, so I think that's a good flyer on a guy who can maybe be a role player, receiver 3 returner type of guy. So I like the pick. I think it was a good little flyer. And then the next 5th round pick we had was Jeremiah Trotter Jr., the linebacker out of Clemson, who famously his dad was a great player for the Eagles, and I just saw today he's gonna take 54, which was his dad's number, and he wore it in college, and they have the same celebration when they get sacks and shit. So great, great for content, good legacy pick. And he actually had since 2022 he has the 4th highest coverage grade among linebackers.
He does.
So yeah, he's a good coverage player. My only concern was just like that all sounded great and looked great, but it just kind of reminded me of the Nakobe Dean pick. And Nakobe Dean is just a guy that hasn't been able to stay healthy, and just when he's on the field kind of gets like bounced around because he's just like a smaller guy, but athletic and smart, and is always like in the right spots trying to make the right plays, but has had a hard time like staying healthy in the league. So I just kind of was concerned. It's like, did we just draft this guy because we like know his dad and know he's a high character guy, and I just kind of was worried. It's like I don't want we got Devin White, Nakobe Dean, and Jeremiah Trotter's like 3 like athletic smaller linebackers, but it's like, are they going to be able to hold up and actually play in the league? We'll see. So
right.
Yeah,
I liked both of those picks for you guys. I actually remember, because I don't watch or haven't watched a ton of Texas A&M games since Johnny Manziel left there.
Right. Yeah.
That's the
Mike
last
Williams. I
time
mean, Mike Evans.
right.
Yeah.
That's the last time I really was watching him consistently. But I do remember
Yeah.
his freshman year when I think he was a tandem with Devon Achan.
And
So
Smith, you're saying?
yeah, so I do remember
Yeah.
him playing running back. 'Cause I remember that number 0, and I remember the last name. He had a unique name, Anais and Smith, and so I was like, but I thought he played running back. So I to that point, I didn't know that he switched over to wide receiver slot because I don't watch Texas A&M like that. I had just caught a few
Right.
games,
Right.
but that just shows a lot that he's able to when you're able to switch positions. And you're not an offensive lineman, because obviously we know about offensive linemen being able to play multiple positions. But when you're an offensive guy and you're able to go into a different role and be just as good as you were at your main role, that's huge. So I definitely feel like he's going to be able to carve out a role for himself on your guys' squad. So I do remember him. I think that's a great selection for you guys. And then I've told you off air, man, don't sleep on Trotter Jr. I'm telling you, he's gonna be a dude.
Tell me why you think he will be a good player. Like, what do you see that I'm missing? Maybe.
Well, first I'll just say, like, I understand your comment is more off of trauma. Like you're kind of tired.
Yeah.
You're tired of linebackers underachieving with the Eagles. So
Yeah.
I 1,000% understand why. But I don't think you can compare him to N'Kobe Jr. Yeah, they're around the same height. I think he's an inch taller. He's 6 foot, and N'Kobe is 5'11".
Yeah, I think so.
But for me, when you watch N'Kobe's tape, other than him being a little bit injury prone, as you kind of seen, Jeremiah said he doesn't have the injury history that N'Kobe does. So I'll say that's one thing. So obviously, when you get into the league, people say, like, you could be healthy all of college, and then in the league you have injuries, or in college you were extremely injury prone, and then in the league you have none. So obviously it could switch, but him not having any issues so far, that's one thing that I'll say that is different. But two, N'Kobe, to your point, kind of plays to his size. He's just like a faster guy that can kind of cover. But when it comes to the tackling part, the main part of the position, he kind of fails in that category, which is not good for the position that you're playing. But with Jeremiah, he's kind of like his dad, bro. He's messing dudes up. He doesn't miss tackles. He's very physical, especially when you watch. He sheds blockers very well. So for me, from his tape, he could be a little bit faster. You would like for linebackers nowadays to be a little bit faster, but that would be the only thing. If I had to say, like, what don't you like about the dude is he could be a little bit faster. But for me, the size is perfectly fine. The coverage is there. I think we talked about that as well. So I think and when you have a dad who was successful as he was in the NFL, that's only going to help you. Because you have at least somebody. You're not the first person in the family to be a pro. You have somebody holding you down to say, this is kind of how you become a pro and all that. And I know that just because Steelers love bloodlines. We have cousins and uncles and all type of people that have come through the Steelers. And what you said is, a lot of the time for us, I will just be honest and say it's because of the bloodline and not because of the player. And that's what we have to stop doing. And I think, and hope Omar will stop doing. But I don't think that's that for you guys. And I think he's going to be a quality player. And I guess we'll just see it in 2 or 3 years. But I think you guys will end up having a solid, linebacker in him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's going to get a long leash in terms of, like, being able to go out there, make mistakes, and just play, because, he's going to be a fan favorite anytime he walks out on the field.
Exactly.
So if he can, make some plays on special teams and get out there, people are going to be excited and wanting to see more of him. So that'll definitely work out in his favor. So yeah, it's on to you guys. 5th round or 6th round? I guess
we have 2 6th rounds. So yes, for us with the 178th pick, we chose Logan Lee from D-tackle from Iowa. Guy I didn't get to watch film on at all. Still really haven't tapped into his tape. From what I'm hearing and seeing, he's kind of going to be seen as a depth piece, really, because we're kind of, I think, preparing for the departure of Cam Hayward. He's going to be 35 by the start of this season, and last year of his contract. I know he really wants to win a Super Bowl. I know Mike Tomlin really wants to get him a Super Bowl, but Father Time is certainly a thing. And so he played edge at Iowa mostly, but he can play inside. And so I think that's going to be more of a interior piece for us. Bigger guy, 6'5", 281. So definitely bigger prospect, leaner prospect, I should say. But don't really see him being a starter day one, or maybe even a starter at all, but can be a definite like solid rotational piece for us. So that was just more of like a depth pick, and I wasn't too upset about that, because with this draft, overall, when you got from round 5 and on, it kind of was just choose the best player available for you. There wasn't a ton
Yeah.
of depth in the rest of
Yeah.
the position, so that wasn't too much of a issue for me. And then with the second sixth pick, with the 195th pick, we took Ryan Watts, cornerback from Texas, and so that was the corner pick that I thought we were going to take in the fourth when we took Peyton Wilson. But I'm glad we still, snagged a guy, 6'3", 208 pounds. Really liked some of his tape where he was playing safety. So out of high school, he was a safety, and he originally went to Ohio State, and he played safety at Ohio State, and then was converted to corner when he got to Texas. And so I like the fact that he can play both. He's said in the presser that he can play both, and Mike Tomlin kind of sees him either like in the slot for us, or maybe another safety. So we can kind of run a 3 safety set with him, Minka, and Deshaun Elliott. And so I like the pick because whenever you have a versatile guy that can kind of play, in between roles, for us, we definitely need that because of the kind of, defensive schemes that we run. So if he's able to play in the slot at 6'3", because he did run 4.53, so not extremely fast, but fast enough. We all know football speed can be a little bit different, and not a lot of guys or track guys or kind of really know how to run the 40. So you could be a little bit faster than the 40 time that you post. So I like the pick, man. Bigger guy, if he can play in the slot or he goes to safety, I'm cool with either one of those. And so we'll just kind of see during camp if he can carve out an immediate role, just because we kind of do need either an outside or a for sure slot guy, so that we kind of can get a tandem working with Joy Porter Jr.
Nice. Yeah. I forgot about 1 5th-round pick. Also, we had another one. It was Trevor Keegan, the guard out of Michigan. He was another guy that we took in the 5th. Yeah, he was that's another like good depth piece, in case, the guard situation doesn't necessarily pan out. And he was a 3-year starter in Michigan, and, he had no sacks allowed this past year. Had a good pass blocking grade. So that was a good pick by us there. Yeah. You can get into your next pick now.
That was actually our last pick. So we can go into the undrafted, unless you guys had a 7th. We didn't have any.
We had 2-6 actually.
Okay.
So we had Johnny Wilson was the first. He was the receiver out of Florida State. 6'6". What is he? 230, I think. Ran a 4.5 40. So big dude, long arms, can jump, but not super slow or anything. So that was good to see that he ran a decent 40. A lot of people coming into the draft were saying like he probably end up being a tight end at some point, but the Eagles, as soon as they drafted him, they were like, he's not going to play tight end. He's going to be a receiver. So we'll see if he can.
I've watched a lot of tape on him. Definitely. I think Florida State was his 3rd or 4th stop. I think it was 3rd stop. I think he started off at Oregon, and then he was at ASU. He was out here. I think when Herm was there, and then went to Florida State. But yeah, for me with him, man, it's just like the dude is huge, and it was great, like you said, for him to post that 4.5 40 time. But for me, man, the dude has way too many drops, and when
bad drops.
Yeah. When you see him go against corners who are like, bro, like 6 inches shorter than him, 7 inches shorter than him, like 5'11", and you're 6.
Yeah,
man, he doesn't he doesn't play to his size, kind of like how we were upset with Chase Claypool not playing to his 6'4" frame. It's like, what are you even that size for? So for me, um, I know you guys said you don't want him at tight end, but I would see if he could block or come in on a 13 personnel type of thing where he can be an extra blocker. Because for me, again, not trying to, I really preach about not hating on prospects and demeaning, because these are young dudes trying to carve out roles in the NFL
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But from what I've seen, kind of really underachieved in the wide receiver realm, and just kind of was just a big body guy that sometimes as a possession receiver was able to do some things. So I'm sure you guys will figure it out for him. But yeah, definitely a guy that kind of underwhelmed for me when I was watching tape.
Yeah. I agree. It's just one of those where it's like, oh, 6'6", like big dude,
This could be
throw it up
something
to
type
him,
of
like
thing.
could
Yeah.
be intriguing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, worth a flyer, I guess.
Yeah.
Later round picks, you don't really know. So,
Yeah.
why not take a chance? And then our last pick, which was number 190 overall, which was fitting because Jason Kelsey was number 191 when he got drafted, and the player we drafted was Dylan McMahon, the center / guard out of NC State. And that was another one of those guys that I talked about, had a really fast short shuttle. He had a 4.33 shuttle.
Right.
And we talked about it weeks ago. He was one of my sleeper picks too. Just really athletic, quick center. He's a little undersized, but he allowed 1 sack last year, and he's just someone who can, under the right coaching and stuff, maybe turn into a good player. We just saw that with Jason Kelsey. So
Right.
it would be fitting to see, like, his replacement just come out of nowhere and
out.
start balling. So
Right.
yeah, so definitely, with that type of athleticism, worth a late pick on, and
Yeah.
throw darts at the dartboard, which is what I wanted to talk about a little bit. Just like in general, I just feel like both our teams are they're just good at, like, not like we talked about the team building, but I feel like both our teams also just, throw the right darts at the dartboard. Like, I feel like some teams don't want to, like, trade back or don't want to, like, take risks in the draft. They kind of just, like, do what's expected. But I feel like both of our teams, like, are trying to really improve every year when they enter the draft. Like, the Steelers have been praised recently. The past 3 years, they were always drafting, like, with consensus. Like, they're always drafting the players that, like, they should draft based on, like, how the board is falling. They're not, like, reaching for picks. And the only time they really reached based on consensus was for Kenny Pickett. And that's, like, you want to reach for a quarterback sometimes, take a chance, because that's the most important position in football. And that was the really only pick over the past 3 years for the Steelers. They haven't picked in consensus, and that didn't work out for them. But, like, besides that, most of your draft picks have worked out. Same with the Eagles. Like, some guys don't necessarily hit, but if you have the right process, I feel like your team is in a good position to sustain success. And both of our franchises have historically been decent, and more recently, we, like, the past, at least in our lifetimes, we've both seen our teams win Super Bowls and kind of always be in the conversation. So yeah, like, entering this draft, the Eagles only had 8 picks, and they left the draft with 9 players and a 3rd round pick, a 4th round pick, and a 5th round pick next year. So it's just like, I'm just glad that we have a GM that is, always thinking about the future, always trying to, like, do the right things in terms of team building and fixing problems. So
yeah, and to that point,
shout out Howie Roseman and
right.
Omar Khan for that.
Right. I feel like that's just kind of been more of a recent thing for us, especially because we got Andy Whittle from y'all. I think he's helped a big time with Omar. I'm not trying to discredit Omar. I think he's completely going to turn our franchise back to back to our winning ways. But I think a lot of Andy Whittle's process from when he was with you guys, and just his the way he's going about building a team is really helping Omar, because he's kind of done it. Omar's only 47 years old. He has, experience in these rooms, but not specifically making these choices like Andy has. And I think it's really nice to have him there because, I know Kevin Colbert, he brought us 2 Super Bowls. We won a lot of AFC championships with him, got TJ Watt, he did a lot of great things. But I feel like the past 5 years, very safe. Um, didn't really feel like he was being aggressive about winning whatsoever. And so now with Omar, these past 2 drafts, we've gotten A's or A pluses, for our grading. And you saw, the draft class of 2023 really, from day one was a big part of the team. Our first
Yeah.
4 picks, 3 of them are starters. The fourth one, comes in off the package. Darnell Washington was doing a lot of blocking for us. And so hopefully with this year, it just continues. And then we kind of take a page from your book again and kind of set ourselves up for more picks in the future or do more finessing as Omar has been shown to do. We call him the con artist. And
Con
so
man.
the
Yeah.
con man, con artist. So
Yeah.
hopefully that continues. But yeah, really, that's really what it's about, having a very professional and aggressive front office and GM. And so, yeah, it looks like both of us are entering that
Yeah.
realm of being able to
Yeah.
continue to do that.
And we talked about it off air, but it's just funny how like when you see mock drafts for next year, we're always you were telling me like, why do they always have the Steelers picking in like the top
Oh, we'll get to that.
15?
That's my grind my
Oh,
gears.
that's your.
So
Oh,
we'll
okay.
we'll, we'll get to that. I'm glad
I
you
didn't mean to
said
step on
that.
your segment.
No,
But
I'm
yeah,
glad you
just
said that because we're going to get
yeah.
to that. We're going to get to that.
No, yeah. But just a little preview to his grind, his gear segment. It's just funny how like you guys haven't drafted in the top 15. I feel like ever, rarely, and it's like you're always getting quality starters. So that just goes to show like how good of a draft process you guys have and how
Exactly.
you're always picking the right players. Because it's like you're not getting a lot. Some teams luck into getting a top 10 pick and then they get a great player, but some teams who are consistently good, like a Steelers, they don't have the luxury of always being in the top 10 to get a really good player, and they have to find quality starters in the later end of the first round and
Right.
and on the later days of the draft, and they always do. So yeah. Yeah. So we can you want to just get into grind our gears, or you want to talk about undrafted players, or
We can. I'll just say we don't have to name all of them. I'll
yeah.
just say
Go ahead.
a guy that I'm excited about. That I think definitely can make the roster, kind of like how Jalen Warren did. Don't know if he'll carve out the role that Jalen has carved out for himself, but Beanie Bishop, man, he's a DB from West Virginia, and
Mm-hmm.
smaller guy, 5'9", 5'10", but can play in the slot. Um, really aggressive dude. Had a lot of picks throughout his career at West Virginia. Really think that he's a guy that the slot position is open for grabs for anybody to come in and grab it there and be that third corner. Definitely feel like this is a dude that can make the roster as long as he stays healthy throughout camp. But it's a guy that Mike T is very excited about, and so when I saw the fact that he's a West Virginia guy, Steelers fans are mostly West Virginia, Penn State, University of Pittsburgh guy. So I just feel like he can immediately make a role out for himself as long as that he's able to just get into the scheme of what we're trying to do. But he's a guy that I'm excited about, and hopefully he's able to carve out a role for himself.
Yeah. I think I saw what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, the Eagles. I think the Eagles signed 7 free agents post draft, and the only one that really stood out to me, who could maybe find his way on there, is Kendall Milton, the running back from Georgia.
I saw that.
He's
Yeah.
a player. Yeah, he's a player that has some good grades and those stable metrics like yards after contact per attempt, gap grade, and zone grade. He graded really well in those stable metrics. But he just has he kind of has an injury history a little bit, so maybe that's why he went undrafted, and stuff happens. But I think he's a good guy who just is a north south runner, and he's gonna try and just do his thing, and he's strong, and yeah, I think that's a guy I would be more interested to see how he kind of fits on the team than a Will Shipley. But
Right, right.
we'll see. We'll see. Alrighty. Let's hear it, man. I already previewed it. That's called good podcasting right there. I set it up for you. Give you the alley oop.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. So my grind my gear segment is just gonna be something that kind of is an every year thing, or is becoming an every year thing for the Steelers, and that's like when the draft ends and you see these, way too early 2000 whatever next year's draft, and they got the Steelers, picking 11, 14, and as you said earlier, I don't, and unless we traded up, I don't remember us having our true pick be 15. And I don't know how long, I'd have to check, but it might be when I was in elementary school or maybe junior high.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, what are we doing here, man? And it's like, even when you hear them talk on NFL Network or ESPN or wherever you're watching your sports news, and they always, when they're talking about different teams and the Steelers come up, and it's always like, the Steelers are always too good to be choosing in the top 10. The Steelers are always too good to be getting this type of quarterback. So they kind of have to do things, you always are hearing that type of thing. And so if that's the case that everybody is noticing and everybody is talking about, why is it that these analysts continue to do that? And for me, the only thing I can think of is just being lazy. You're just being lazy, because at the end of the day, you've kind of seen, even with Kevin Colbert, we know that the past 5 years hasn't been the best with him drafting. But even to those points, still, and I don't like even saying this, because I don't really care about the no win, no losing season. I should say I want, the playoff wins. I want to
Right.
play in
Right.
the AFC Championship, Super Bowl, all those things. I think it's impressive, great for Mike Tomlin, but like I really don't care about that as a bragging point, I guess I'll say. But to that point, we have no losing season, so we're not choosing in that top tier ever. The lowest is like 19, 20, 18, 19, 20, and above that. And so, like I said, I just feel like it's laziness, man, because when you see now that we have Omar, what we've done in the past two drafts, um, you know, how ready to play, I guess I'll say that 2023 draft class was, and how they, affected the team right away. I don't see how you can do that. And then on top of that, the selections, and I know it's supposed to be way too early. Not everybody has watched film on all these guys. You kind of know certain dudes that you probably have saw the previous college season and were like, okay, I can see him. He's a sophomore. Next year he'll be this. But they got us, mock. I think Quinn Ewers was one of them. We had Drew Alar, that was one. Penn State QB, and there was one more, man. But it's just like I'm not
Was it
getting it.
Shador drafted or Mocktail too?
That was one too. I think I believe
Yeah.
it was all three, and I'm cool. Shador, I'm not trying to knock Shador. Not really
Right.
too high on
But
Quinn.
I just meant more like you shouldn't even be in the position to get him necessarily.
Right,
Yeah.
especially because
Yeah.
if he's supposed to be the number one overall pick or top five, whatever it's supposed to be. But
Yeah.
yeah, to that point, it's like we don't know what either Russ or Justin Fields is going to do. But basically, not only are you saying that we're going to be below 500 with that pick, or have our first losing season. That's basically what that means when you're saying we're going to choose 14 or 11, whatever. But it also means that you think that two dudes are going to fail. It's easy to say like, this person is starting. Let's see if he ends up, being the guy for the team. But I don't see us going 0 for 2. I can see maybe Russ getting injured, possibly, hopefully not, or maybe being inconsistent, and then Justin comes in and kills it, or that Russ goes back to his ways for the last few years of his career. But I don't see Russ completely bombing and then Justin coming in and then he doesn't know how to play football either. And that's basically what you're saying when you're having us choose there and choose a quarterback, is that there's no way that either dude is going to work out. And like I said, again, that's just laziness, I feel like. And I don't like it. I'll say that. It has nothing to do with being a Steelers fan. I just feel like, man, do the due diligence. If you're going to say we're going to take a wide receiver or another offensive tackle, which those might not be things that we're going to take, but I would rather you do that and have us choosing 24 or something like that than do that. At least show every single year that you're watching the teams and seeing that, okay, this team got a lot better throughout the draft. This is what I feel like. For example, and I'll wrap it up with this, is like, the Commanders chose 2 overall this year. They had, I think, 12 or 11 picks. They got their quarterback of the future, presumably in Jaden Daniels. I wouldn't have them choosing 2 or 1. I'd have them choosing like maybe 5 or 6, which still bad, but that's me at least seeing and knowing the guys that they drafted and saying, okay, they're probably going to have 4, 5, 6 wins instead of like the one, I mean, something like that to show like at least you're being, aware of what's going on. So I'll just say that and leave it at that. Like, just do better and be more conscious of like the draft picks, the tape, and all that, and not just throwing hot takes out there because it's just weird.
Yeah, I think. So you said, I have it pulled up. So was 2023? Was that your actual draft pick, or was that a trade? Did you guys trade up at all for Broderick?
We were choosing. I think we were choosing 17, I want to say, and traded up to 14.
14.
Yeah.
Okay. And
we
then what
missed
about
the when by one game? I think we were 9-8 that year. So yeah, we were choosing 17.
And then in 2019, did you guys trade up for Devin Bush?
Yeah, we traded up to 10.
Okay.
I think he got selected 10.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, because I just have the year and the draft pick, but it doesn't. I can't tell if it was traded or not.
Yeah.
So based off, if that's true off those two, then the last time you guys picked top 15 or like less than 15, like 14 or lower, the last time you picked under 14 was 2004 when you drafted Big Ben.
Okay.
And then before that was 8th overall for Plexico Burrs. So
right.
Right. Like so like to your point, it's happened twice in our lifetime that the Steelers have picked in the top 14.
Right, man. And so yeah, again, like I said, with what we've been doing and what we've been doing with less, I would kind of say like be for real, because we've been doing more with less and now we have more. So I would think we would do more. I don't think it would be the opposite of that. So we'll definitely see, but I don't see us choosing top 15 or below, for our true pick in a long time. I'll say that.
Yeah. I feel that. My grind my gears segment basically is just like I just am done with the Jags. The Jaguars are like a team, because I love Trevor Lawrence in college. I'm a big fan of Doug Peterson. Won us the Super Bowl. I think he's an underratedly great offensive coach. But just Trent Baalke, their GM, just is one of the worst drafters I've ever seen. That and it's I've been saying the draft is a crapshoot. You got to just throw darts at the board, but like in terms of like just consensus picks, like people that like picks that like everyone assumes that like are good players, they just like for some reason refuse to like draft people that are there, and they just are always like picking out of consensus, and they'll draft like the past 4 years in a row. Basically, they drafted a running back in like the top 3 rounds or something, and it's just like you took Tank Bigsby in the 3rd round last year, and then you took another running back this year in the earlier round. I don't even remember who they drafted, and you had Travis Etienne in 2021, the 1st round. It's like what you pick Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson. It's just like,
do you do anything
there's just
right?
so many, there's just so many instances of like just poor drafting and just awful like picks, and it's just you're not even giving your team a chance to compete, and I just think they need to blow it up in terms of front office. I don't think their coach or quarterback is the problem, but they clearly have a GM that just doesn't know what he's doing, and I don't understand how he earned all this fucking leeway and why he still has a job. The Jaguars haven't been good ever, and they escaped one playoff game and won because the Chargers choked. He has no success. He has no like home run hits in the draft. He should not be a fucking GM anymore, and I'm sick of it. And until they fucking get rid of him, they're going to be in trouble. So that's just, I just don't like the Jags front office. But rooting for Trevor, rooting for Doug Peterson, but fucking
Hopefully he
good
gets
luck with
some
that team. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that should do it for this week. We'll run it back next week. Talk about who knows, see
maybe
if anything
trades
crazy
coming up,
happens in the
wide
NFL.
receiver
Yeah,
class,
or
mini rookie camp is coming up for at
yeah,
least
I
the
don't know.
Steelers.
Let's talk about the schedule releases coming soon. We'll talk
That
about
should be,
something, but
yeah,
yeah,
there should be a few things.
yeah, but like, follow, subscribe, Steelbirds podcasts on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Steelbirds podcast on IG. It's your boy CK on IG and Twitter, Brock _IV on IG and Twitter, and we will catch you next week.
Peace.